And Jocelyn, thank you so much. Do you mind giving me screen sharing access?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Do you have it now, Michaela?
Yes. Alrighty. Great. Well, thank you so much, Jocelyn, and thanks to Marissa for inviting me to be here for the May Power Hour. I am so excited to speak with you all today about managing cross-departmental projects and relationships. And I will just, before I introduce myself, I'll just run through a quick agenda for our time together. So first, I'll share a little bit about me and my interest in managing cross-departmental projects and teams. Then I'll share some common characteristics of cross-departmental projects and teams. We will go over some principles you can keep in mind as you manage this type of work. And then I'll go through some step-by-step how-to of preparing and leading cross-departmental projects, including diving into an example. And at the end, I'll share my contact info if you'd like to keep in touch. And then I'm excited to hear your reactions and questions during the Q&A. So hello, everyone. I am Michaela Howard. I am a career and leadership coach and strategy and management consultant for mission-driven organizations. I am really passionate about creating and supporting teams to thrive in their work. And I love collaborating and solving complex, juicy problems. I got my start 15 years ago in nonprofit work as a community organizer working to advance environmental campaigns. So you can see me here in the photo as a baby organizer back then. And I recently left a long-term position with a social justice campaign organization where I led strategic planning initiatives that engaged every corner of the organization. So the tips I'll share today are rooted in basic organizing principles and were honed as I facilitated cross-organizational initiatives. And a few years ago, I moved from Boston down to Richmond, Virginia, where I live with my family. So I'll start by sharing some of the common characteristics of cross-departmental projects and teams that I want to speak to today. So in this kind of work, I've found that cross-departmental projects often require participation from folks who may not be accustomed to working together. And therefore, it's really important to build trust with both you as a leader of the team and among the full team on a fairly short timeline as you get your project up and running. Because the team isn't accustomed to working together, it's important for you as a leader to provide some certainty and structure so that the group really understands how to work and interact together. And finally, I think there are some situations where you might have been assigned your team members by a leader in the organization, and other times where you may need to recruit your team. And in both cases, it's really important to be thoughtful about how your team members are being asked to participate so you can really speak directly to their interests. So next, I want to share some principles that guide me when I'm working on cross-departmental projects. So the first is vision. So it's really important to root into your project's purpose and unite your project team behind a shared vision. Some of the things to think through here are, where is there room for collaboration or input around the goals of your project? Because cultivating a shared vision really supports greater buy-in among your team and the broader organization. Next is contribution. So one of the most important ways to build relationship is to understand and maximize the unique strengths and skills of each of your team members so they feel valued on your team. Some of the things to think through with this are, what are each person's unique strengths, skills, and expertise? What is their work and collaboration style? What do you know about the culture of the department that they're coming from? And really meet people where they are so you can design your project accordingly. So it's really important to just give people roles that are meaningful for their skills and experience, and also tell them why their contribution makes a difference to your team. The third principle is clarity. So provide clarity from the start around each individual's role, responsibilities, expectations for participation, as well as the project structure. And finally, and probably most importantly, is to root into relationship. So seize opportunities to build relationships with your team members one-on-one, which provides space for people to share thoughts with you that they might not feel comfortable sharing in a large group that they don't know well. But also prioritize group relationship building amongst your team members, because as we mentioned before, they may not have had much opportunity to work together if they're in different departments. So you can also encourage relationship building among your team members by encouraging them to pair up on kind of sub-projects within your project so they have those one-on-one opportunities to work together and build relationships among each other as well. So next I'm going to dive into a little bit of how to. So first things first is you want to do some thoughtful preparation for your project. And I really see preparation as an act of love and care for your team. So when you're thoughtful about your preparation, it supports you to get really clear on what's important and demonstrate certainty to your team. So one of the first steps in your planning process is to identify the tangible outcomes your project will produce. So what will success look like in terms of results for your project, in terms of work product? But you also want to think through, what will success look and feel like for the actual team members? And you can even identify outcomes related to the skills your team will develop as a result of participating. Next is take some time to analyze organizational conditions that may impact the success of your project. So some of the questions to think through here are there other things going on in the organization that might impact the outcomes of your project? For example, has the organization just wrapped up a big gala and had everyone working overtime? Or perhaps you just lost a critical team member and people are feeling stretched for time. So these are the types of things that impact how people will receive an invitation to participate in a new project. Some other questions I like to consider here are there any internal dynamics that could impact the team you assemble? Or do you have leadership support? Or do you need to organize greater buy-in across the organization for your project? So thinking through some of these elements will help you ground yourself in context that may guide how you recruit your team and enter these new relationships. Next, it's important to spend some time thinking through the unique skills and experience you need on your team to accomplish the project. So for example, do you need people with formal authority on your team, or can anyone in the organization participate? And one reason to have someone with a formal leadership role in the organization on your team is so that they can be an advocate for your project to organizational leadership if you need to organize greater buy-in for the project, as I mentioned before. So once you have a list of skills that are really important for accomplishing your project, then you want to think through who in the organization possesses these skills. And you basically just want to make a list. So if you're recruiting your team yourself, you're going to want to think through a couple different options of people for each skill in case people can't say yes to participating on your project. And then when you have a kind of a list of potential people you might recruit to your team, take a look at the full list and pay attention to make sure your team represents a diversity of skill, organizational tenure, roles, identities, and also, if it's relevant for your project, potentially geography of where folks live. You'll also want to think through how power dynamics may come to play in the design of your team composition. So for example, you may not want to have a manager and their staff person on the same team because of the dynamics that could present as you're organizing your project. And then once you've thought through a potential project team, also consider what are the benefits of participating in the project for your team members. So for more junior staff, is participating in this project a leadership opportunity? What kind of skills might people gain? And really thinking through why might someone say yes to participating. And then finally, also think through how you'll structure your project. So for example, how frequently does the full team need to meet to stay on track with your goals? What tools will you use to collaborate? How will you hold each other accountable to doing what you say you will do? So we've done a bunch of prep for our project team. And so now we're going to go through an example of kind of analyzing our team so that we can put together meaningful roles for folks. So it really helps to understand each person, some of their priorities, and their skills and experience. So the example we'll go through will allow us to imagine how to put some of these tools into practice. So let's imagine we have been assigned to lead a project to organize a fundraising event. So we are going to imagine we are the senior fundraising manager, and our current priorities in our work are to plan a fundraising event that raises $15,000 and identify new major donor prospects. And one of the skills that we excel at is relationship-based fundraising. And in this scenario, our team has been assigned to us. So there are 3 members on our team. Sorry, I'm just arranging my screen so I can see who's on our team. So the first person on our team is the membership manager. Their priorities right now are to recruit new monthly donors and identify new volunteer prospects. And their stellar skills are also relationship building. Next, we have our communications coordinator, and their priorities are managing the organization's editorial calendar and creating engaging social media content. And some of their great skills are writing and project management. And then we have a community organizer joining our team, and their priorities are to generate grassroots support to pass a city ordinance at City Council and to recruit influential supporters for the ordinance. And they are really great at campaign strategy. So now that we know a little bit more about our team, we want to think about really recruiting them to our project. And even though these folks have been assigned to our team, we still want to approach them as if they need to be recruited, because we have no idea if they were excited about this opportunity or or not. And so we want to use this opportunity to build some excitement and buy-in among our team before we kick off the project. So I first want to make sure that the team has all the information they need to understand upfront about our project. So we're going to outline a one-pager that we will share with each person for recruitment purposes. And some of the information we'll include on our one-pager is the project purpose and goals, project purpose and goals, greater context on what's going on in the organization and why is this project important, and also everything they need to know about each of the roles. So we also want to share more specifics about those roles. So what are the skills required for each role? What are the responsibilities and expected time commitment? What information do you know right now about the project structure and meeting cadence? And once we have all that info, we also want to think through the specific person that we're recruiting for each role. So we already know a little bit about their priorities and some of their stellar skills, but I want to think through which role that I need on my team might maximize this person's skills and contributions. And then I want to also prepare to ask each person some questions so that I can understand how to work really effectively with them and get to know them. So then we're going to schedule time to meet one-on-one with each person and build relationship. So what I want to do in this meeting is make sure I'm really asking them to participate, again, because I don't know how they received the invitation when they were assigned to the project. And I want to take the opportunity to get to know them a little bit. So we're going to go back to our scenario and talk through some of the information that that we want to share with each of our team members. So first, the project purpose. So the project purpose for this project is to plan a local fundraising event that builds power for our campaign to pass a city ordinance. And next, we'll share some of our project goals. So now I took some time to look at our project team and drafted some goals that I thought would be meaningful to the folks participating. So in the event, our goal is to raise $15,000, identify 3 new major donor prospects, recruit 5 new monthly donors, identify 5 new volunteer prospects, recruit 3 high-profile attendees, and collect 30 signatures for the city ordinance petition. Then I'm going to share some greater context to ground my team and why this is important. And of course, I'm simplifying this for our purposes. In real life, you may want to provide some additional info on organizational context to your team members. But in this case, I'll share that we've built really great momentum on the campaign. We have an opportunity to put pressure on City Council with this event because the City Council meeting is 1 week after our event where they'll be voting on the ordinance. So next, we came up with a list of roles needed to accomplish our project. Since we only have 4 team members, we may need folks to play multiple roles. And so the roles for this project that were identified are overall project manager, content creator, a constituent organizer, member organizer, and logistics coordinator. And so now we want to prepare to pitch our team members on their roles, and we're going to use logistics coordinator role as an example. So for the logistics coordinator, we thought the skills that were really important for being successful in this role were a great attention to detail and project management. So then I want to go back to look at my team again. And And I noticed that the communications coordinator, does a lot of content creation and writing, which requires some good attention to detail. And they are also, we know, stellar at project management. So we want to prepare to talk to our communications coordinator about stepping into the role of logistics coordinator. So in that one-on-one, I want to share the responsibilities for the logistics coordinator role, which are to identify an event location that can accommodate 50 people, organize materials and logistics according to our project budget, and coordinate a program team in the weeks leading up to the event. And some of the details about the project structure they can expect are that I thought this role might take about 5 hours per week up until the event. And I want them to know that in order to participate, they need to commit to coming to a weekly 1-hour full team meeting, and they'll be in charge of convening an event committee in the final 2 weeks coming to the event, before the event. I also want to think through some questions I want to ask them in this one-on-one. So some of the questions I thought were important here are, first off, what questions do they have about this role? Is there any support they would need to be successful? Do they have any preferences around how to receive feedback? And what is the best method to communicate with them? And also, how do they like to be celebrated? Because we'll want to make sure we're celebrating our little and big wins along the way. So then we'll fast forward a bit because we had all of our team one-on-ones. The communication coordinator said yes to being the logistics lead, and everyone else has been recruited into roles on the team. And so I want to look at some tips for leading the team. And it's important, as I mentioned earlier, to provide some certainty and structure for the team as they get to know each other, because as we learned earlier, they really may not have had a chance to work closely together in the past. So first, remember to frequently reground in your purpose and vision as a group. And one of the other tools I love to use with teams who haven't worked together before is agreements for working together. And these are essentially statements of what you commit to as you work together that set some expectations for the group. And they're pretty similar to what you've probably seen as group agreements for a meeting or community agreements, but sometimes they get a little bit more specific than that. So we'll go through an example. So with the scenario team, we met early on in our kickoff of the project to develop some agreements for working together based on our work styles and what we're used to in our departments. And what we agreed to was that we would send meeting agendas to the team 24 hours in advance before our weekly meetings. We also agreed to share feedback with each other in one-on-one settings because not everyone was comfortable receiving feedback in group settings. We also committed to each being prepared to report at weekly team meetings on our progress towards what we said we would do that week. And finally, we wanted to take 5 minutes at the beginning of every meeting to talk about what's going well and sharing some celebrations. So next, it's important to provide as much clarity and structure to your team around what's next, but also really balance that with flexibility. So of course, conditions will change and you'll need to shift course as you go. So also provide meaningful opportunities for your team to shape how you respond to those changed conditions. And one way to build trust with a team like this in the moment when you're experiencing some of those changed conditions is to share what you as the team leader are feeling challenged by and ask for ideas from the group on how to respond. So really allowing the process to be generative. And finally, throughout your project, regularly check in about what's going well and what could be going better. You can do that in group settings or in one-on-one settings. And do make space for one-on-one check-ins with your team from time to time to hear, again, what they might not feel comfortable sharing in the large group. And also to just continue building your relationship. So these are really great opportunities to ask what ideas folks have about your project direction, or ask them for support to shape your team agendas so they remain engaging. Also get creative with these one-on-ones based on what you've learned about each person as you've been leading the project. So to wrap up, I just want to kind of reground in the principles I shared at the beginning, and I encourage you to think through each of these as you think about your unique situations and projects, and adapt these tools to apply what's useful to your context. So first is vision. Really unite your project team behind a shared vision. Understand and maximize the unique strengths and skills each team member can contribute. Provide clarity about roles, expectations, and project structure from the beginning. And seize opportunities to build relationships in one-on-one and group settings. So with that, I want to thank you so much for being here and tuning in, and I'm really excited to hear your reactions and questions in the Q&A. I wanted to share my contact info. I'd love to keep in touch and happy to support you as you apply these tools to your own context. So if you'd like to chat through your situation, you can scan this code and schedule a free one-on-one 30-minute strategy session. And I've also included my email here as well. But I will also put the link to schedule in the chat just as I take down the slide. So thank you.